The root in English of addict is the Latin addicere, which means religious devotion.
Interesting.
It was an attribute of beginning monks, I think.
Religious devotion. He says at some point, everybody worships something. You know, sometimes it's gods, but it could also be capitalism. It could also be your corporate job, stuff like that. And people become addicted as a way of coping. Potentially about this whole culture shift that he's talking about. Everyone's depressed, so what do? You turn to drugs. That is what, as he would say, that's drugs become something that you worship.
We can choose to an extent what we worship, but the myth that we worship nothing and give ourselves away to nothing is simply sets us up to give ourselves away to something different. For instance, pleasure. Or drugs, or the idea of having a lot of money and being able to buy nice stuff.
Yeah, the god of capitalism, absolutely, of which so many of our society are religious devotees. Always a worship and always a sacrifice, whether conscious or not. Love that too. And boy, do we have a sacrifice going on with our technology, basically sacrificing our lives, definitely our attention, into capitalism. Our weekly tithe is 40 hours a week, and ain't that fucked up? Sign me out, not up. Sign me down. The hijacking of our biology, like it's literally tailored to be as attention grabbing. And this down to like the Pavlovian neural conditioning. Like, you've heard of the experiments where you feed a dog and you ring a bell, right? And the dog likes the food. And it associates that bell with the food, such that eventually once you strengthen that neural connection, the bell alone is enough to get the dog to start salivating. And it's basically a same analogous thing. Like but the bell in this case is just like everything. We're surrounded by the bell. We have the most insanely ringing bell in the palm of our fingertips, and we have constant access to that food, to that junk food. And yeah, I mean it's probably not healthy. We're basically surrounded by candy and told not to eat it, except it's like hyper candy for the brain. I mean, entertainment is a drug. I mean, I don't know if that's just like obvious to say at this point, but that phrase is coming to mind for me. And everything that he's been talking about with addiction, religious devotion, and this craving spiritually that we have, entertainment is, and drugs as being a way to cope with sort of suffering and this existential loneliness that we feel as a society. Entertainment is absolutely a form of drug. And when you think about it, what does that say about society? That we're essentially all just drug addicts. I mean, when you think about it, just based off everything we've been talking about, we've all heard of those studies where it's like you give rats like cocaine or heroin or something, some kind of dopamine inducing drug, and they will just do that until they die. And obviously they're rat brains, they're much simpler creatures, but I mean, you can't say that there's not a parallel between that principle of just doing something over and over, becoming addicted to it, like David Foster Wallace is saying. And an analog, I mean, we're all rats, and then as he described it, the engine of capitalism and addiction and consumerism and this hyper dopaminization of everything, that's our little lever. And we just do it and do it and do it until we die. Dilkor, like you just said, with I'm thinking about it now. You're saying that the rats will refuse to take the drugs when they have a community. And that's precisely what's happening in modern society. We don't have community. We are alienated. We are constantly surrounded by people and places and things, but spiritually we are all alone. And I think that's why we are continuing to push the lever of the drug, which in this case is, whether it be, actual drugs or, something like entertainment and all the other stuff that we've been talking about. It's because we lack a community and we need some way of coping spiritually. And this is the drug that makes it all go away.